And we're live. Good morning, Chris. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Yeah. And
morning
Chris,
to the chat, to all is in the chat. I can't see it right now.
Big savings on 2019 heavy-duty trucks.
Let me mute everything I've got going on. All right. I think we're good. Everybody in the chat, let us know if the audio's good for me and Chris. Chris obviously is on his cell phone driving. That's how committed he is to this free and open Sunday chat. He is driving, and he is here.
Try and do this safest way possible, too. So, hands free, etc. But
yeah, we got Patrick in the chat. It says, yeah, the earlier broadcast time is much appreciated. Yeah, I like doing the earlier times, but it's all dictated because of my work schedule. Sometimes I have to do them in the evenings. So that is why I often have to change the time, as my work schedule is constantly rotating. I never know when I'm working on Sundays. So Ricky was in the chat. Ricky, if you want to join us, hop in the chat. Bean says hi. Alan Pope, good day. How you doing, Alan? Farron is here. Tell Chris. And Matthias is joining us here in Zoom. How you doing, Matthias?
Hey, I'm fine.
Yep. Good to see you. So what's everybody been up to today?
getting a late start, but be at the museum probably in another 5-10 minutes here. I'll probably drop out for a couple minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, my day is just beginning. I'm getting my coffee. I'm going to do this chat with you guys, and then as soon as I stop the stream, I've got to head to work. So
I realized I was running a Fedora 28 on one of my machines. I thought I had 29 on, so I upgraded that last night.
Matthias, who is that behind you on the bed?
Ah, it's my dog. He's chilling.
Yeah. Not very active, huh?
Yeah. He likes to lay in my bed and just take it easy.
Yeah, people often ask me about pets. I do actually have a cat. I have a cat that I've had for 10 or 11 years. He just never is on camera. I never let him in the room here when I'm streaming or anything. I should one day show you guys my cat, but I don't want to be like Tom over at Switch to Linux and have the cat on the desk and running around. That's a little too much. It would annoy me having all that going on, because I'd be worried he's going to hit the keys,
Well, he needs to get a penguin then,
You're right. Yeah, if you're going to do that, yeah. If you're going to try to get those shameless views with your animals, get a penguin for Switch to Linux, huh? All right. Yeah, this week I've been playing around a little bit. I checked out Haiku. I don't know if you guys have ever looked at Haiku, the operating system. I've looked at it a few times over the years. It's been in development for like 20 years. And it is a neat little operating system, not Linux-based. But I always enjoy it when I take a look at it. I'm not sure what the purpose for anybody actually using it would be, other than it's not Linux.
It's not Windows.
It's not anything really that you've ever used. It's just something different to play around in. But it is a neat OS.
Well, it kind of reminds me of Next with that floating command icon.
Yeah, absolutely. Matter of fact, BOS, I believe Apple was, back in the 90s, was looking to buy BOS to use as a replacement on some of their older hardware as far as the operating system. But I think they ended up buying Next at some point. Now that you mention it, there was some crossover there back in the 90s as far as some of that. That's ancient history.
When I switched to BIOS.
Yeah.
But that never took off.
No, it really didn't, yeah. For a few years, it was kind of big. I mean, you heard about it a little bit.
Yeah.
There were some companies interested in buying BOS back in the 90s. I think the original creator ended up selling it for pretty good amount of money, like $400 million or something. So he made some money off of that operating system when he sold it. But then after he sold it, nothing ever happened to it. I forget the company that bought it, but they didn't do anything with it.
Hello, guys.
Hey, Big Pop.
Hello.
Morning. Or good afternoon, or evening, wherever you are.
He is in the dark, it looks like. And we also got Kiwi and Christopher trying to join in. I don't know if
I didn't know I'm in a stream from the future. December 16th, 2019. Nice.
Yeah. Is it December? You know, that is. You know,
oh yeah, that's right. It's my birthday today.
I did that last week too. That is very nice that it's already next year.
Yeah.
No, we did that last week too. And nobody let me know until like 3 days later. Hey, do you know the title of your stream was named wrong? You know?
Yeah. You're just excited for the new year. That's all.
I'm very excited for the new year. Actually, I just want to get past Christmas. That's all I'm worried about at this point.
I can't wait for Christmas, honestly.
I've taken vacation for 2 weeks, and it's gonna be nice.
All right, let me change the title of the stream here. And that is weird that it was titled 2019. Was it really labeled 2019 this whole time, like when I posted it yesterday? Because I did the same thing last week, and you know, and I purposely, when I titled the stream this week, I said make sure to get the year right. Like mentally, I put that in my head, and I still messed it up. I think YouTube is messing with me. All right. Yeah, speaking of YouTube, they still like to demonetize these live streams for some reason. And it's weird because I don't get anything else demonetized, but usually right after we post these live streams, this live stream will be demonetized for a few hours. I always dispute it, and they usually overturn it. So.
All right. Not like you have any copyrighted material on here or anything.
No, there's. Because if there was a problem, they wouldn't overturn it when they, you know, they go back and check out the video. So it's just something triggers their algorithms.
Do they just simply flag any live streaming stuff as unmonetizable?
No, because I mean I've had some that weren't demonetized. It's just these Sunday chats. Since I've been doing these the last couple of months, for some reason these live streams are always demonetized. So I don't know if it's something in, you know, they don't like the title, the description. I don't know. I haven't played with any of that. You know, the title and the description's the same every week, other than the date. Yeah. So.
Yeah. This is the problem with YouTube. It's always you're doing criminology on these guys. You don't know. Everything seems arbitrary and secretive, and everybody's just guessing what you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I gotta drop out for a couple minutes, guys. I'll be back in a little bit.
All right.
Okay.
All right, Chris. And hopefully, Chris makes it to work okay, driving, you know, on Zoom. That's
if I can figure out how to leave the meeting.
Yeah, I don't know how the mobile Zoom client works. I haven't.
You press leave on the top right corner.
I've never actually installed Zoom on my phone.
It's red, just says leave.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like he found the button because he's frozen now. So I think he.
So how are you this week?
It's been a busy week. Like I said, just trying to get past Christmas. I work in retail, so the last couple of months, you know, of the year are always crazy. That's why, you know, always tired and don't have a lot of time to do what I need to do on the channel, but it's almost over. We have got 9 more days and then things will settle down and be kind of back to normal, you know, for the next 9 months or so.
Yeah.
So
hey guys, how's it going?
hey robot. So yeah, I was just talking about some of what I've been playing around with this week. I checked out Haiku as far as the operating system. It was pretty neat. Some other stuff I did this week that I haven't done on camera. I've been playing around with some more terminal programs. We got some feedback here. Andrew? Or it might be Big Pod.
I'm okay.
No, you're good. Okay. Yeah, so I'm going to get some stuff on camera this week, but one really neat terminal program I've been playing around with, you guys know I've been using the Ranger file manager for a while. Well, I found a different terminal file manager that I've been playing around with, VIFM, the VI file manager. So I've been playing around a lot more with Vim lately, and this file manager, VIFM, is a dual-paned terminal file manager that uses nothing but like the Vim hotkeys and everything to do everything. It even has modes like Vim, you know, to delete files. You know, you DD just like you delete a line in Vim, or YY to copy, and just the whole thing is all very Vim oriented, much more so than Ranger, although Ranger uses some Vim key bindings. So I'm gonna do a video on that particular program sometime this week, because it's a little complicated to get into. All right. Good morning, Andy. How you doing?
Good morning, Derek. Doing just great. Glad I thought to check out whether this was going on or not.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I tried to give you guys a little bit of a heads up. I posted the reminder, though, kind of late last night, because I wasn't for sure if I'd be able to make it this morning or have to do it this evening until sometime yesterday. So.
Well, I just forgot to look when I got up, so.
No.
But here I am.
Well, good to have you.
So you're liking that VI file manager pretty well?
I've played around with it just a couple of days, but it actually is pretty neat. It really is. It's not a bad little file manager. And like I said, the dual paned nature of it is really neat. So you always have, well, you don't have to have the dual panes, but when the dual panes are up, you have 2 different panes of your file manager that are completely independent of each other. You just hit tab on the keyboard to tab between them. So and I'm sure you could do that with Ranger, and I know with VIFM you could do single pane if the double pane bothered you.
Yeah, I've been using Ranger for some time. Maybe I'll check out that VI file manager too. You can write scripts and all that for it, I assume, custom key combinations and all.
Yeah, pretty much, any of that you should be able to do just fine. I'm going to do like I said, I'm going to do a video on it because it's going to be a more in-depth kind of discussion, especially since it involves so many Vim keys to do anything. If you don't know Vim, it would be tough. So I'm going to do a video on it. But it's pretty straightforward, actually. It's got its own like RC file, its own config file that shows you all the key bindings, what they do. Like I said, YY to yank, copy a file, DD to delete a file. Like P for the put command in Vim does the same thing in VIFM. It would paste something. If you want to change the name of a file, you just highlight it. CW, change word in Vim. Same thing in VIFM. It automatically lets you rename the file. Like I said, it's even modal. Like you can do some modes with it. Just like you can in Vim. So. Neat little program. I haven't played around with it, like I said, just a couple of days, but I've enjoyed playing around with it, so I think I'll do a video on it. I don't know if I'll use this going forward, but I'm definitely going to use it for a little while, a few weeks, see how I get along with it.
I look forward to it.
Have you ever tried Kitty, Derek.
Which one?
Terminal emulator, Kitty.
Kitty. No, I haven't tried that one. Now, I've tried most terminal emulators, but I haven't tried that particular one.
It's really good.
I've had people recommend it to me. Yeah.
GPU based. It will utilize your GPU, so it takes the load off CPU.
No.
It's really, really nice.
One of the recent ones people have recommended to me, and I did play around with it a little bit. I didn't make a video on it. Was Alacrity. I don't know if you know that one.
Yeah, it's a little bit heavy, I think. Alacrity.
It is. It's okay for a terminal emulator, but it's like nothing special. Like these terminal emulators, what do they do differently than like the others? Like people always are recommending, there's dozens of these things out there. I use URXVT just because, it's kind of a standard. And when I have it set up and configured the way I want it, it just works. And people are like, well, why don't you try Xterm? Well, I've used Xterm, but what's the difference between Xterm and RXVT? Nothing really once you get them set up. Why don't you use ST, which is the simple terminal from the Suplus tools?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I mean, that thing out of the box doesn't have any plugins or extensions to it, so it's kind of useless. You would have to configure it. I'd have to take the time to do all that when I've already got RXVT set up. So it's like,
I was just looking for alternatives to Termite since VTE3 have depreciated the geometry mode.
Right. I did. When I started this channel, I used Termite for a while because Termite is actually a really nice terminal emulator. The only thing I didn't like about Termite is I can't remember why I switched to RXVT, but there was something Termite.
Probably the image display in Ranger.
It had a problem with the W3M image displays and things like W3M, Ranger, and all that. But I don't use the image display. I mean, it's nice to have, but that wasn't like a deal breaker for me. There was something else that Termite just couldn't handle for some reason. It might have been some kind of Unicode font issue or something, but there was some reason that, some program I was using, Termite just didn't handle. RXVT handled it just fine, so I just started using RXVT all the time, and I've still got Termite on the system. I just never launch it anymore.
That's why I use Xterm, because of the Ranger image preview. I do use that myself.
Yeah.
Now, and that was just automatic as long as you install W3M and W3M IMG.
Now, Xterm does seem to handle everything. I will give Xterm a lot of credit. It handles things like the Powerline fonts and everything really well. Xterm handles those image previews and W3M really well. Xterm's not bad.
W3M works well in Xterm. So, that's kind of what I've standardized on, although I keep, the distribution VTE-based terminal around, whether it be GNOME terminal or XFCE4 terminal or whatever. I've been playing around with the elementary terminal, io.elementary.terminal, just a little bit. Okay. But it turns out it's not any more lightweight than any other VTE terminal, and to change the colors, it has default color schemes in it. To change a color scheme, you have to go to terminal.sexy and find something and use dconf or whatever to edit it. But I played around with it, but what's the point?
And if you find things like Xterm and RXVT a little too minimal for you, you want something a little more modern maybe for a terminal emulator. Alan Pope in the chat mentions he loves Console with a K, the KDE console. That thing actually doesn't have that many KDE dependencies, and if you already have a couple of KDE programs installed on your system, like me, I don't run KDE, but I have Kdenlive on the system already because I use it as a video editor. I have K3B, the disk burning utility, already on the system. Console probably wouldn't bring in very many dependencies at all, so that's a good terminal emulator to put on your system that it's not going to bring down like the whole Plasma desktop or anything. So
a downside to Xterm is I noticed that if you use the man page, if you display a man page and you're using less as the pager, the mouse wheel will not scroll where it will in a VTE-based terminal, but that's a fairly minor thing.
It is, but
you
it does
annoy. CAT as the pager.
Yeah, it does annoy me though. That you mentioned that some terminals don't handle the mouse scrolling. Yeah, RxVT does. That's another positive to it. Like if I want to scroll through a man page with the mouse wheel, it works just fine. I think I did have to configure that with my X resources though to get RxVT to scroll with the mouse wheel. I could be wrong about that. I'd have to pull up my X resources file to check that out.
I was curious, Derek, how many people use MPD Music Player Daemon
yep.
to play their music?
I do.
Yeah.
I don't.
NCMP, CPP. It's awesome.
I use CMUS instead.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't use the MPD, the Music Player Daemon anymore. I have in the past. Just because I'd prefer not to use, you know, the daemon. CMUS, yeah, CMUS, it works if you want a terminal-based music player. I like it. I don't play music that much, though, on my system as far as just listening to music. Usually I do more of that from my phone, oddly enough. I'll put in, you know, headphones in the phone and listen on my phone.
I've been using music on console, which works really nice, but you can't do stuff over your, you know, local network. I just wondered whether it would be sensible to store all your music files on one of your machines. Like I've got this little HP notebook that I've kind of dedicated as an internet radio, so to speak. I've got Mach on that. I can dial in my music or radio stations and just have that going while I'm doing something else. But I've got like 10 gig of music files. It'd be nice just to have that on one machine. And then can you, with the Music Daemon, I guess my question was, with MPD and a suitable front end, can you stream the music from the computer that has the music files to the speakers on the computer you're actually using?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, I actually have my whole room connected by a couple of phones, like old mobile phones. I have a couple of speakers, and I have them all wired up or wireless to all play the same music, which is running on my main laptop.
And one of the big reasons to use something like MPD, if you actually wanted to use it the right way, is for that to have to log in from another machine. You know, maybe have one machine that's kind of your music server, right?
Yeah.
And then so
may have to look into that.
Yeah.
Morning, gentlemen.
Shouldn't be difficult to do at all.
Hi.
Hi, Ricky. But as far as, we wonder how many people use MPD. It doesn't seem to be that popular.
I think you just changed the IP address in its config for the host machine for it to listen to.
Yeah, and you have to do a couple of other stuff because it needs to be either pulse audio over the network, which is kind of hard to set up, and then you need to have like a specific machine to play. But if you can do the over HTTP, which brings some delay in. So when you switch the music, it might take like a second or two to switch to actually you hearing that it switched music. But otherwise, it does okay.
Yeah, it might be something I could play around with a little bit. Because I do have a Raspberry Pi. I could set something up on it and see if I could put some music on the Pi, put it somewhere in the house, have it on all the time, and just use the Pi maybe as some kind of music server. Yep.
Yeah, like I said, I have a couple of old phones that I don't use anymore, and I just wired some speakers I have over the room, and I have my own wireless access point, so I just connected all those to that. And when I play music on laptop, I can hear it all over the room with those speakers.
Yeah, the MPD, the music player daemon, it's got one config file really that you play around in. And now it's a massive config file. That's what mpd.conf. Anyway,
all settings aren't even that important.
Yeah, all the settings. Yeah. Sometimes that thing can be a pain to get set up right, though. So
it sounds like a lot of work.
It's a little work.
I had my hands full getting music on console working well, but maybe I'll try it.
Isn't that much work if you check on internet? You just need to change the bind to IP so it binds to 0000, so it can connect if you have like multiple networks. Connect from any network. That's how I set it up, and you need to change from pulse audio to what's it called? To stream over HTTP. So it streams over HTTP, and those are like two sets of settings. And if you want like a user, you can create yourself a user that is password protected. That's it.
Yeah, I guess I'm more interested because I finally found a couple oldies stations with live streams that I really like, along with some other things. So it seemed like the online radio stations change a lot. You used to get a lot more of them, and they've kind of been closed off or gone to radionomy or something. You can't just listen to them anymore, but some are out there.
Well, I really listen to internet radio myself.
Now, I actually do listen to internet radio sometimes. I've got some suggestions for that, Andy. Have you ever checked out Radio Tray? I don't know. You know that particular program, Radio Tray?
Yeah, I've played with that, and
it's not.
It was pretty good. I just listened to a handful of stations. Jazz Radio Berlin is a real nice one. Megatron Cafe Radio, some Megaton Radio Cafe, and some similar type deals. Found a crazy rockabilly station out of the UK. It's pretty wild. Solid rockabilly 24/7.
Another interesting internet radio program I checked out on the channel a while back, early in the channel's history. Gradio with a G. G-Radio, Gradio. I think it was an Electron app, but it was nice. I use Pandora as far as a music service. There is a really neat... there's two really neat Pandora clients that I install on my system. If you want something graphical, Pithos, P-I-T-H-O-S, is a really neat Pandora client for if you want something graphical. If you want something command line, Piano Bar is a nice terminal-based Pandora client. Both of them dead simple to use.
Well, I'm going to have to check that out because I'm a big Pandora user. I just usually use the straight client. I didn't even know that there was any.
Yeah.
What's the fee on Pandora, or is there a charge?
Free.
If you don't mind ads, Pandora's free to use.
There's two other levels too. You can I pay like $4 a month, and then it's all ad free.
Right. It's cheap to get rid of the ads.
Another level above that.
Good info. Thanks.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I'll type those in the chat. Pithos and Piano Bar were the names of those two programs. Pithos is the GUI. Piano Bar is the command line. Yep. Two different applications, but both work well. All you do is you set up a config file for either one of them. They both work very similar with your name and password for Pandora. And when you launch whatever client you want to launch there, it just starts playing, your favorite radio station, whatever you got it set to. So.
I just upgraded this machine to Fedora 29. Seem to be working okay for you guys on that end?
Yeah.
Beautifully.
Yep. Fedora 29 has been solid. Yeah, I've been playing around with Fedora myself for about 3 weeks now. Correction in the chat. Alan mentioned Gradio, which I mentioned was an Electron app. It's actually a GTK app. That's probably why they added the G to it, right? G Radio. Okay.
Yeah, I upgraded from 28 to 29 on 2 machines, and it just went very smoothly with the script they provide.
Yeah,
You know?
you use DNF or
Yes. And there's a script. Fedora Magazine had an article on how to upgrade using it. So you download a script and maybe one other thing, and you run the upgrade script, and it just downloads everything, reboots, installs it, reboots again, and you're in 29. It really wasn't any trouble at all.
Yeah, I didn't have. It was probably the smoothest I've had. I've used DNF and Yum to upgrade before. The only thing I don't like is the fact that you go and type in the command and it suddenly says, "Oh, system upgrade is not a valid command." It's like, oh, you got to download the module. So.
Small thing, but so Derek, you said it's still working for you. You're still using Jam?
When I set it up 3 weeks ago and got all the programs I needed installed on it, they just worked, and I've had no issues. Kept it up to date, and nothing's broken, which I wouldn't expect anything to break on it. I'm used.
Will it get too boring for you, and you want to change it just because, or do you think you'll stick with it since it's a production situation?
Oh, I'm sure I'll change in a couple of weeks. I'll probably hop to something else, and as far as is it boring? I don't mind boring. I like things that just work. So
same here.
Yeah, but for purposes of the channel, yeah, boring is kind of bad. I like moving to something else, especially something that breaks. That's more exciting. Yeah, it's yeah. What is all that noise?
Yeah.
Gotta be Ricky, yeah.
It's not me. I mean,
I think that's Big Pod in the background.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure it's not Ricky. He doesn't look like he's banging around on anything.
No. It's one of the ones without the video.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
I don't think it's me this time.
Not me.
Well,
I had my mic off, so it couldn't be me.
Yeah. Zoom does have this really neat. Zoom does have this really neat feature. It's got this mute button at the bottom left. So if you're not speaking and you're going to be making a bunch of noise, you can just hit that button, and you don't have to worry about it. I do that all the time. Like if I know I'm about to cough or sneeze or whatever, pass gas, just hit the mute button, right?
I have a hardware mute button on my headphones, so
yeah.
Isn't that what they have in broadcast radio? They have the button on the console that they can the DJ or the announcer can mute themselves while they cough and sneeze and stuff like that.
Sort of the opposite of push to talk button.
Mm-hmm.
Push to mute.
Push to not talk. So DT, I just found out that DaVinci Resolve can't use MP4 on Linux.
It can, just not the free version.
Yeah, I mean the free version can't use MP4.
But there's a very, very simple workaround.
What was that again?
DaVinci Resolve using MP4?
Yeah, it can't use on free version because of the codec price and all that. You have to pay for the codec.
But there is a simple workaround for OBS and Simple Screen Recorder. If you set the container to MOV, the video codec to MPEG-4, and the audio codec to PCM S16LE, absolutely perfect. The output of that you can drop straight into Resolve.
Yeah, I know that. I know you can use anything. Like even I believe MKV works, but I never really tested. It probably if I have all the videos recorded in MP4 because I normally edit them in Windows. I was just.
I prefer not to re-encode something. I like to get the output straight into the editor.
Yeah, but I use them I normally edit in Windows, and MP4 works in Windows version.
You're recording your videos on a Linux machine and then editing them in Windows.
Yeah.
Normally, I record them on Linux machine because I normally record them on Linux, and I don't edit them right away, and because I didn't use Resolve up to like yesterday on Linux. I normally edited them on Windows because I always had trouble setting up Resolve on Linux.
Oh, it's a lot easier now.
Yeah.
Well, I could see recording all your videos on one machine and then editing them on another, especially if that machine you're recording on is not a very powerful machine.
Well, and it's not like the old days where with videotape, as you go down, each recording goes down a generation too. So, a bit is a bit is a bit. Just provided you don't have any corruption going on in there. So.
Right.
So I got some edited in Windows.
Mm-hmm. Well, you could always just edit with Kdenlive in Linux and forget about proprietary software like DaVinci Resolve.
I hate Kdenlive. I hate it with...
It's far too unstable.
Kdenlive is unstable.
Extremely unstable.
I find it really, really usable. I can't remember the last time I had a crash with it.
Try doing it with huge projects, gigabyte projects, not just a couple of 100 meg.
Yeah.
How are you installing Kdenlive? Or...
Well, I was just saying, there you go. I mean, if you're doing a huge project, maybe you should cut it down to cut it down, man.
Yes, you can cut it down, but if you want like a lossless codecs, then you can. If you use lossless codecs.
Yeah. I mean, I've never had Kdenlive. I'm not gonna say is like rock solid stable. I've had it crash on me once or twice, but I've never seen a problem with like very large videos. I mean, I've recorded videos that were nearly 2 hours, and editing and clipping things together, and Kdenlive handles that just fine.
The thing is, I don't see
putting a lot of After Effects in there, or
even stuff like that. Yeah, adding some transitions and stuff like that. I don't play around with that too much, but Kdenlive handles them. The only thing Kdenlive has a problem with when you start adding a lot of effects, the preview window, that doesn't handle those very well. The little live preview of what you're doing.
The thing is, if a proprietary software company offers a native Linux version of something, then I don't see a problem with using something like that to get the job done.
Oh, I was poking a little fun at Big Pod. I'm not one of these, free software Nazis that say all you should use is, you got to use what works. But, I was half kidding there. So.
Well, I normally use what works, and for me, Resolve works. And if I have to use it on Windows, I'll use it on Windows.
Yeah. And if you're used to it, yeah, keep using it.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Gotcha, Mert.
Good. I don't do any audio reading anything, but I would like to extract some audio from some video of 30-second segments. How would I go about doing that?
FFmpeg.
No.
FFmpeg?
You can even load video in Audacity and just extract the bits you want.
Yes, I was going to suggest the same thing. If it's like an MP4 file, just load that in Audacity, copy what you need to copy, and save the file as an MP3 when you save it, and then you've got it as audio format or whatever. It doesn't have to be MP3, but whatever you want to save it at.
Or even Kdenlive. Just slice the chunks you need and export them.
You can actually, use Kdenlive to edit some audio. Yeah.
Derek, I've got a question about enlightenment.
Yes, sir.
Not as a philosophy, but the distro.
I was going to say it's a long process.
well,
yeah, I have my own approach to that, but I downloaded and made a thumb drive with Enlightenment Legacy, which is for 32-bit machines.
Okay.
And thought I'd try the live distro on the 32-bit Dell Latitude D820 I have that's currently running Fedora 29 Cinnamon. But when I opened it up and got it, it couldn't find my wireless card. It just, wouldn't. I went to the menu and looked under connections, and it didn't even recognize the wireless card was there. I remember stuff like that happening a few years ago, but you know, it seems like nowadays most distros will recognize
what kind of wireless card you have.
Oh, I don't know. It's a Dell. It might be a Broadcom.
If it's Broadcom, you won't get wireless drivers since it's proprietary software.
Hey guys.
Well, I won't get their driver, but I mean,
sorry. You need to install yourself.
You know, when I install most, I've tried a lot of distros, as you know, on live USB, and they almost all, you know, recognize the wireless card no matter what machine.
Live USBs, you have most of those have the Broadcom drivers, but they don't install it. Same is with Fedora and with Ubuntu.
Yeah. So then what, you plug it into Ethernet and try to download the driver, etc. It just seems like a lot of work.
Proprietary drivers have this problem. There's with NVIDIA graphics cards.
And it's still a problem on some distros. I've tried different distros on laptops that, I've had the same problem. Wireless just doesn't work out of the box. Many of them do things, you know, Ubuntu works. MX Linux is fantastic. I've never installed MX on any laptop where I didn't have wireless as soon as, you know, I was done with the installation.
Same with me with the MX Linux and, you know, the main big distros. It just seems like these days that's kind of something you'd expect. Deepen's
another one that is good out of the box. Just recognizes all your stuff. Elementary did not, though. When I tried Elementary on one of my laptops, I didn't have Wi-Fi right away.
So
strangely enough,
the tricky thing here is yes, drivers are a problem, and some of the Linux distro companies, like I can only speak for Canonical, but I'm pretty sure the others do as well. We have a team of engineers in China who get sent devices before they get sent out retail. So before that Dell you could buy, Dell would send it to us and we would make sure that all the drivers work, and then we certify that machine. So there are certified hardware lists where you can see, you know, which machines are well supported and which ones are not, and which ones have chips that are well supported and which ones don't. But it really takes for someone to do that work, the hardware enablement work, before the network card works, and hope that the vendor ships like a decent network card that does actually work, rather than ship one that's busted by
Yeah, well, since Enlightenment is based on Ubuntu, I understand they wouldn't just necessarily, they don't load everything in there, obviously. But it just, I was kind of disappointed that hadn't happened to me in a long time.
Yeah, I must say I haven't had wireless problems for a while.
They have a network manager in Enlightenment called Conman or something like that. That's very problematic, but you can switch it out to network manager. Takes a little bit, but just change the driver or change the manager rather.
Yeah, I was using the 32-bit. I know their 64-bit version does use network manager. I'm not sure about the 32-bit. That was a small thing. I just thought I'd try it out, and I was kind of surprised.
Well, I specifically bought myself a laptop which has Realtek wireless cards. So I wouldn't have problems with wireless.
I guess the other thing is you can, in many laptops, you can just change the wireless card. Like it's often a thing that's pluggable and it's removable. So, you know, find a decent one, an Intel-based one. Even then, that's not guaranteed.
Intel-based are quite good and quite supported.
Yeah.
I got myself, because I had a chance, I got myself Realtek one, and it is quite supported.
Yeah, at least you can get the code for it if you
So, yeah, those Broadcom chips are really the problem, and they're in so many machines. It's almost always the issue when you can't get Wi-Fi on a laptop. It's because of that Broadcom chip.
Broadcom chips were really, really, really favored by system integrators for a long time.
Well, of course, the elementary desktop is available in Fedora. I could just download that and try it, but I guess Enlightenment doesn't use that. doesn't use it anymore. They're using a fork because they didn't like the direction it was going.
Yeah, they forked the Enlightenment 17 desktop, and their desktop environment they call Moksha or something.
Yeah. Moksha.
So it
in other
is
words,
a little
it's
different.
Sort of like Enlightenment.
Yeah. But if you like Enlightenment 17, you could just install your favorite Ubuntu flavor. Hopefully, Wi-Fi works on your machine, and then just install Enlightenment. So, I'm not sure if you could get the Moksha desktop.
It's not in the Fedora repositories, but Enlightenment is.
Yeah.
Not that I have a real reason to do it. Cinnamon's running fine, but
yeah, I've switched over to Cinnamon. It seems to be doing pretty good. There's a couple little quirks here and there, but like the greeter doesn't like to show up the password prompt unless I move to a different user, then move back to my username, and then then I can put my password in. But other than that,
have you gotten weird size icons in the little panel yet?
No, I haven't had that problem, which is weird because I'm just using the discrete video on the motherboard, and OBS says, "Hey, update your video drivers." It's like, well, they are up to date. It's just the ancient video. Yeah. I put a mute here.
Hello.
I'm not here, so. Yeah, but Andy, probably as far as the Wi-Fi, you might ask that question over at the Enlightenment support channels, because I'm sure it's not a problem that only you have had with that distro. It might be an easy fix to it that they can just give you a couple of commands and take care of you.
Yeah, it's probably just plug in the Ethernet, a hardwire Ethernet connection, and download something.
Yeah, it's going to be the proprietary driver that you need for it.
I'm getting lazy.
Yeah. Well, to be honest,
I've always been a proponent of hardwire wireless anyway.
Frankly, I had to do that with Debian the first time I installed Debian on a machine with a Realtek Wi-Fi. I had to hardwire and then download it. I think it was.
I'm the same way though. As far as being lazy, I've gotten to the point now where used to I would play and tinker and try to fix problems. Like if I install something on one of my laptops and the install takes longer than 10 minutes and I don't have Wi-Fi up and working, as soon as I'm done, I immediately grab another USB stick with a different distro and install, because I'm not gonna try to figure out problems anymore. I just don't have that kind of time.
Yeah, I switched to Ubuntu in 2004, end of 2004. I used Red Hat, Fedora. I think I skipped Fedora because it was Red Hat 7.3 back then, and then Debian, and then switched to Ubuntu, and I haven't switched since. The only exception to that is this thing that's running KDE Neon. But yeah, I don't have the time or inclination to switch distros. I'd rather just install it and use it and get on with it.
Right.
But I can appreciate what I do see is a lot of the time people try a distro out and something doesn't work, whether it's wireless or video resolution or 3D acceleration or tearing in the video playback or printing, or any one of 1,000 little paper cuts will break, and they will switch distro because they've heard it's better on another distro, and they switch to that one, stay with that for 6 months, and then something different breaks, and then they'll switch again. And I just can't be dealing with that. I would rather I'll suffer whatever the problem is on one distro rather than have to keep switching all the time.
My favorite question that I get asked 100 times a week: what's the best distro? Well, what are you trying to do? I mean, there's no magical, just one size fits all distro. What are you trying to do? Like, people want, I'm going to give them this distro and all their problems just go away. It's like,
and it depends who you ask as well. Like,
right.
If you ask one person who loves building everything from scratch and loves being able to have absolute fine-grained control over every package that's on the system, they might say Gentoo, or they might say Arch, or you have someone else who says, I really like the way a distro enforces freedom on me, so I prefer to use Fedora because they don't allow proprietary stuff. You know, it's everyone has their own perspective on it, and it's.
I prefer stable, so I've been using Debian 9 and XFCE. XFCE gets updated about every 3 years, and Debian 9 every 2.5 years. So I've sacrificed for that stability, and it's worth it for me. But a lot of people can't do that, right?
Yeah.
So it's not the right for a lot of people, but it is right for me.
That's the thing. Some people want that stability. Well, depends on your definition of stability. If stability as in like the same package will be there tomorrow that was there yesterday, or stability as in this thing's not going to crash, right? Or both. But there are some people who just like riding that wave of brand new software that's coming out every day, and you know they've heard there's a new version of the kernel that you know gives them a quarter of a nanosecond faster login time, so they're going to go with that. And there are people who want that absolute bleeding edge, and these are two like polar opposites, really.
Well, I think that's part of the problem why a lot of people get fed up with Arch. They're upgrading their system far too often, and things tend to break. I've been running Arch for 4 years, stable as a old horse, and yeah, I mean it's fine. The one thing is, and the other thing is, you know, a lot of people have problems with, you know, if there's problems with dependencies, where there's conflicting dependencies on a download, and they go, oh, what do I do now? I can't upgrade this, and I can't do it, and then they just end up leaving it. What generally on the Arch side of things, somebody will get round to fixing it pretty quickly, and you know, or you can do other things to avoid that bit of software, you know, on the download. So yeah, I mean, but I love Arch, and I you know, I don't see a problem with it. You just got to know what you're doing, basically.
That's the problem. You have to be a system administrator to run Arch. You have to accept that you are now a sysadmin.
All right.
It's not.
I'm a sysadmin then.
Yeah. Welcome to the world of sysadmin.
Yeah. Installing and using Arch was very educational for me, but I only stuck with it for a month, and you know, I've been in Debian stable XFCE just like Murray for.
What made you leave it? Why did you leave it?
Well, let's see. It's not because I had crashes or anything. I just didn't want to have to, you know, it turns out I update every day, but at that point I thought that was sort of a disadvantage. And frankly, if they always recommended, well, go to the website and make sure that the next update won't crash your machine. That's what killed it for me.
It's a pain in the arse, yeah.
so you know, I went on a long journey. I went through antics. I went through a lot of stuff, and I ended up with Debian stable. I've just, on this machine, I've gone to Fedora as an experiment. Liked it so much, I've stuck with it. It's very stable, and I have more updated applications. The only reason I'm not converting my main machine is it would be too much trouble to reinstall all the applications.
I've aborted Arch for the same reason, the constant updating, but that's about to change. I've come across something unique. Antergos lets you install the ZFS root file system.
Yep.
Finally got it working this month, and I've had it up and running for a week. On my panel at the bottom left, I have a whisker button. I have a blue button that says take a snapshot. I have a red button that says restore to the snapshot. So I can just hit that blue button, do my updates. If they don't work, I hit the red button and go back. And that will cover about 90% of the problems. It won't cover a bad kernel where you can't reboot. But so far it's working good for me.
You could have actually used time shift if you really wanted to take
you can't use time shift with ZFS. But
no, I'm saying just on a standard exe4 file system.
Yeah, or ButterFS, time shift works
or
with
ButterFS even, yep.
So that's working out well for me, and I'm porting my Debian 9 over to Antergos, and I noticed Antergos is integrated. Debian 9 is sort of patchwork. If I want Etcher in Debian 9, I have to download an app image. If I want it in Antergos, it's part of the repository. You'll get updated to the latest one all the time.
Yeah.
And so I think eventually I might end up in Ontario with, as long as I can back it up with the snapshots.
That's the joy of the AUR.
Yeah. Well, I know I'm going to stir up a hornet's nest, but these stable distros like Debian and CentOS and Slackware, these containerized packages like Snap, Flatpak, AppImage are fantastic because you no longer have to worry about all these dependency issues when you want some new package, because if you just, like, you install that AppImage you just talked about, it just works, right? Where before you weren't probably getting that on Debian 9 because Debian 9 now is so old, you know, it would just be a nightmare to try to build it from source and get all the dependencies you needed for that. So I love snaps, I love Flatpaks, I love AppImages, and I know people trash me every time I mention that. I think they're great.
I hate them, absolutely hate them. I'm sorry, Derek. Yeah, I
can't stand them.
Yeah.
I knew that was coming. So.
Wish we had just one instead of three. We don't.
Is this? I personally don't think it's ready for prime time yet.
No, it's not.
There's too much guff involved.
Docker. I mean.
Yeah.
So,
well, yeah. I mean, Docker's the same way when we're talking about containers. Yeah. So.
Some would argue that the Linux desktop isn't ready for prime time yet. So this is just a component that fits quite nicely on the Linux desktop.
Yeah. Well, there was a guy that I was watching on YouTube, Chris Titus. He was talking about the problems of putting Linux as a desktop in the mainstream. Is the fact that, one, we don't have a unified desktop that you can say, okay, here it is. You know, you still have to be very you have to be very versed in at least the basics of IT or how to get things running and stuff like that. It's not a plug and play system to the point where, let's say, like Mac OS or Windows is, which I also find very, very interesting, is the fact that it looks like the next Windows is going to be a form of an environment on top of a Linux kernel.
Yeah, I can see that. There won't be no next Windows.
No, Windows 10 will be it, huh? That's the last one.
I mean,
Windows 10 is the last Windows, and it will be just incrementally updated.
It's going to be a rolling release cycle thing they're doing, isn't that right?
Basically, it will be all the time updated.
Yeah, it's a rolling release model they're moving to.
I mean, another thing, my programming's always been applications programs when I did it. We're not system stuff, but it seems as though Linux has all these different libraries because different, applications developers use different foundations. So every Linux distro has to include, not one. I mean, the kernel's got an API, but if you're going to do application programming, it seems you have to choose. Is it going to be Ruby? Is it going to be Perl? Is it going to be GTK? Is it going to be Qt? You've got all these choices to make, and it just seems, I would think, kind of chaotic compared to something like Windows.
And that's partly why when Ubuntu first started, they said, we'll make opinionated decisions about what goes on the ISO, and they decided it's all GTK, there's nothing cute on there, and there's one text editor, one web browser, one music player, and they made a decision, like the people who ran the project decided what was going to be the music player of choice. It may be there are other better ones, but that's the decision they made. And that seems to have worked relatively well. I mean, Ubuntu, you could argue quite popular in terms of Linux distros. Obviously, it's not as popular as Windows or Mac OS, but that was the goal, was not to provide this chaos of choice for the user, but to just say, here's a CD, install this thing. It might not be the very best music player in the world, but it's a music player that will play your music. And it might not be the very best browser in the world. At the time it was Firefox in the early days. But you kind of have to provide a platform. And it's the same that the elementary guys are doing at the moment. They're saying, here's an opinionated decision about the applications and the libraries you should use. If you want to make an application that targets elementary, these are the libraries you use. You use Granite, you write in Vala. You could use other languages, but
and a lot of people hate elementary for how they do things, but I actually think it makes sense. I mean,
totally.
I got a comment the other day. We were talking about how fragmentation, I guess, hurts Linux. I trash Mac a lot on my channel. I got a Mac fanboy who sent me this comment. He said, "Nothing is more Unix-like than Mac OS. It is designed for certain hardware. It works on that hardware. You're just a hater." And I thought about this, and he's right. Maybe I've got it all wrong. Maybe Mac is the only surviving Unix system out there. No. Okay.
No.
Well, the problem with all that stuff isn't necessarily the operating system or the software that runs on it. It's Apple's business practices that seem pretty obnoxious when you think. I mean, they're trying to vertically integrate. Now they don't even want independent people repairing their stuff.
Yeah,
but could you? Here's the thing.
That's the distasteful element of Apple in my book.
But
it's
could
not
you
so much whether the stuff well, and it's overpriced as well. But
yeah, could you have that Mac experience without Apple being the way they are? I mean, if they were a truly open company and did everything, you know, with free and open source software, it would be just like Linux is right now, right? We'd be forking everything. We'd just be having a grand old time. The reason Mac is Mac is because Apple is this lockdown, you know, company that they just lock everything down.
That's an arguable position, you know.
Mm-hmm. And different strokes for different folks. Some people love that. I don't.
They're still working off the Darwin kernel of Unix. And they've pledged a lot to put their GUI on top of it. You know, to the point where I remember when I was working in a mixed environment with the Windows and Apple, and my Linux training helped a lot because I was able to get down into the command line and get a lot of things fixed that would go wrong with the GUI. But the main problem was that the user manager for the Linux was not the same as the user manager for the GUI. Even though the GUI would create the home directory and everything else like that, it still was a little bit, it's still bypassing what the operating system offers. And so,
yeah.
I don't know where I was going with that. And this is just, it seems though that Mac OS 10, whatever flavor, it sounds like they're going to stay with 10. I don't think they're going to ever come out with an OS 11. And they're just going to keep renaming it into mountains or animals or whatever.
Well, they've renamed it Mac OS, and it's just 10. The reason they changed from 9 to 10 is because they basically just replaced it with another OS and just renamed it 10.
Yeah, well, 9 was the last vestiges of Next, so, and before they took the commitment to go into the Darwin.
Actually, 10 was the first implementation of Next. 9 was the last of the System 7 breed, and then they took the Next interface, which was based on X, and built 10 around it.
Okay, I was mistaken on that then. Okay.
Yeah, I think the thing that people lose when they start bashing on Linux being too scattered is they lose, or they don't know the basically the legacy of it. It's Unix was a server system.
Mm-hmm.
It was designed for, here's a kernel that'll talk to hundreds, thousands of machines, and you bolt whatever interface or whatever your needs are for corporations and stuff like that. And Linux was a clone of that. And it's still to this day is basically, it's a kernel that you can install into a server, which is obvious on the internet, and then bolt whatever you want onto it. And that's why we have this plethora of utilities and user interfaces and all this kind of stuff is because of that legacy. It wasn't designed to be monolithic and a desktop operating system.
It
was
really wasn't, yeah.
The server operating system.
When I first got into Linux, and when I first got into Linux on the desktop, the big thing was, why are you running Linux? That is a server operating system. And even now, all these years later, it still kind of is really just a server operating system. We're putting some desktop stuff. We're putting a GUI on it, but I'm not sure if it's not, that's not how it was designed originally, right?
Well, I mean, Unix itself was coming back from when multi-user, or time-sharing systems was what was the data center, and you had a dumb terminal connecting into that, and that's the legacy of it. And we've moved so far into personal data devices that, I mean, we're talking phones and tablets and laptops and PCs, something that wasn't even a twinkle in someone's eyes back in the 1970s.
Right.
And we're trying to force this type of multi-user operating system on top of a single user device. But I mean, Windows has become a multi-user operating system as well. It's geared more towards the single user. It's kind of a weird animal.
Yeah. Okay, that was depressing. We all just trashed Linux there for a few minutes. Let's get back to on topic. Linux is great.
What I took from design is important.
No, you just wonder, like the approach of Canonical, as was described. You make certain choices, you standardize. That might be a strength for them that makes them prevail.
For some people. That's why I think having distributions like Ubuntu or even something like Elementary, which presents this one user experience, I hope you like it. But for a lot of people, that's what they want. For somebody like me, I don't want that, but so I have other choices, right? I can go run Arch or Gentoo. Choice is good. Right. Choice is not a bad thing.
The number of non-technical people who use a computer vastly orders of magnitude higher than us nerds who like to flip bits on and off and fiddle with text files and stuff. So like if you want to have a significant user base, you target the largest demographic, and the largest demographic people who just want to open up their computer and use like a tool. And that was the goal, to have.
That's why most game developers target Windows, because it's the largest
Chromebooks
part of the.
But do developers actually do that though? Because a lot of the paradigms I see are coming from a developer's mindset, not the end user's mindset. I mean, how much user interactivity is going on, like getting feedback from the user base to say, well, what would you like this to do? How would you like to see this presented?
You have like something like 90% of all or 80% of all people on Windows. Who will you target as a developer? Logically, you're going to target Windows, since there is biggest demographic of users there.
So we did do that. We did do a load of user testing. We got people into the Canonical office, randoms off the street, literally dragged them off the street, gave them an Amazon voucher and said thank you, and then filmed them while they were using the system. This was like 5-6 years ago, maybe more. And
was that like all walks of life, all competencies?
It was a spread. It wasn't like, you must have this type of, personality traits or something. It was just, you must be a computer user. And they were predominantly, as I recall, not Linux users. They were people who didn't use Linux. And we gave them tasks like take a photo and email it to a friend, or play this music, or get the music off of this CD, the typical kind of tasks that an end user does, right? Now, this is some while back, but that did feed into the end user experience that you got in Unity 7.
How much of a metric does that give you then as developers, going forward? How much do you take that information into account when you are developing?
That totally went into the process. Like I couldn't tell you 5% or 10%. Or,
no, of course.
95. But the design team who work in London were directly talking to these people, and these user experience testing was pivotal to what Unity turned into. So like we ended up getting a bunch of nerds on the internet telling us this thing sucks, you're doing it wrong, I like to use it like this. And it turns out we had a whole bunch of normal people who just buy a computer, open the lid and use it, telling us something different, right? It turns out that very deeply technical users use their computers in very different ways. There are obviously some things you do, like everyone plays music, everyone watches video, everyone like has a...
Yeah, of course, there's commonalities. Yeah.
Right. But more recently, you know, everyone's really aware that the amount of users of the Linux desktop has been dwindling over the last, it's not massive growth by any stretch. It has dwindled over the last 5 to 10 years, 5 to 6 years maybe. And the place where more people, the kinds of users who are more typically using Linux on the desktop are developers. So people who are writing Android applications use Android Studio on Ubuntu because that's what the documentation says. And people who are writing applications that run in the cloud, like, you know, deployed to millions of servers, they might run on a Mac because they've got a bash shell and everything they're doing is orchestrated via Puppet, and they can do all that within a terminal on a Mac. And so trying to get those developers across to Linux, you've got to make an environment that works for them. So it's really hard, and it looks like we're trying to tailor things for really deeply technical users, and that's because a vast majority of our audience are deeply technical users. Then it's not mum and dad. Mum and dad went out and bought a Chromebook.
Yeah. Most Linux users are technical people.
But the other thing, sorry to go on about this.
No, go ahead.
The other thing is when you look at like something like Arch, for example, and you say, well, Arch does it like this, or Manjaro does it like this, and people like that, therefore that's the way they should all do it, right? We get a lot of people telling us in Ubuntu, you should be a rolling release because Arch does it and everybody loves Arch. Therefore, if you did it, everyone would love you too, right? There's this somehow people believe that the thing I do is the thing everyone does.
But that's a bit of a logical fallacy, isn't it?
It's so frustrating to be told, like, we do it like this, I like it, therefore you should do it.
I would imagine your prime concerns are stability, longevity.
I wonder
that experience for the end user to be lasting and stable as possible.
Has anybody done a study of the age ranges or the average age of people that use this distro versus another? I would bet that those Arch users are on the young side and don't have as much life experience.
I don't know. It's really hard to do that. It's really hard to do that. It's hard to gather that data, especially Linux users who are the kind of people who don't like data being gathered about them, like broad generalization. But also, it's hard to make those kind of generalizations to say, Linux users are like this kind of person, or Ubuntu users are like that kind of person, or Fedora users are like that, because you can find someone of my age and your age who's running Ubuntu, but equally you could find someone much younger and someone much older. It's really
sure. Just the point I'm making. An individual who thinks that everybody thinks like them, or doesn't understand the variety of types of human beings. They can go two places. They can be a bad manager, think everybody's like them, or they can be a bad developer and think everybody's like them.
Well, what I don't get is like we talk about these super technical people that run Linux, and they complain about Ubuntu does things a certain way on their desktop. Well, guess what? You can change it. I mean, if you don't like what Ubuntu's doing as far as the desktop edition, install the server edition and build Ubuntu however you want it. You don't like that Ubuntu is a static release? Stay on the development release. You're always rolling. You can.
Or use another.
But there's an element of groupthink going on here, Derek, where I don't know, maybe it's on Reddit or someplace. I don't know, but you get to this sort of mass phenomenon where, oh, you can't use i3. You must use i3 gaps because it's cooler to see the space between the windows.
Yeah.
Who cares?
When people complain about
get into that.
Yeah, when people complain about things in a distro that are easily changed by them. They just don't want to do the work themselves, right? They want somebody like Alan to do the work for them. But you don't like the desktop environment, change it.
It's also worth noting that there are a very small number of very loud voices on Reddit. The number of people out there, when you look at like how many people run Linux, there are a significant, like, millions of people who run Linux, and they just use it. Like, I'll give you a small anecdote. Some years ago, we used to have release parties in London. Every time there was a new Ubuntu release, we have a release party. I was sat on a train with one of my colleagues, and we were heading into London to go to the release party because I don't live in London, so we were getting the train. And there were these two guys. This was on release day. There were two guys sat on the other side of the train, and they were chatting, and I overheard one of them say, "Oh, the new release, and it came out today, and are you going to upgrade?" And I thought, they're talking about Ubuntu. I'm pretty sure of it. So I leaned across. I said, "Oh, are you guys talking about Ubuntu?" And they said, "Yeah." I said, "Are you going to the release party?" And they went, "The what?" They didn't know there was a release party. And they were like, we're not involved in the community. We just use Ubuntu at work. And we just, like, we're not, they wanted to impress upon me that they weren't involved. They weren't coming to parties. They weren't, active in the community. They were just happy Linux users. It doesn't matter what distro they're running, but there are a ton of people out there who use it and never make those kind of ridiculous comments on Reddit and never actually get involved in conversations. And
well, how many people know there's even like how many people know there's a community out there though, Alan? I mean, think about it. Most of these people came from Windows and Mac. There's no like Windows. You're not going to a Windows release party. You're not, hanging out on a Windows subreddit.
But
so it's,
why would they? Because like I if I drive, let's say I drive an Audi, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do I really want to join an Audi owners club just because I drive an Audi? Do I really want to? I've got a Bosch manufactured fridge freezer. Do I want to join into some Bosch community owners club for white goods? No, like not everyone has to join in some club that pledges allegiance to the. Should I join the like blue sweater club or something? There's no.
It takes a certain kind of special for that kind of dedication.
That's how Macs and their Apple products work. You join their cult. Like, have you ever been in an Apple store? It does feel like a.
It is very cultish.
Yeah, but normal people don't. Like, my wife has an iPhone, and my daughter has an iPhone. They're not part of that cult. They don't go into Apple stores. They don't interact with Mac users. They're not part of any community. They're just using a device. They take photos, they make phone calls, they surf Facebook. They're normal people. And that's I think the thing that Linux users find difficult to grasp is that there are normal people who just use it like a tool and don't want your club and your community, and they don't want to be part. Like, they're busy going out for drinks with their friends. They're not sitting on Zoom on a Sunday afternoon, sitting with their families.
I've installed Linux on so many like family and friends, like old laptops that couldn't run Windows anymore. I put Ubuntu or Mint or something on their laptop. They don't even know what operating system is on it. They just know it works. You talk about Linux, they don't even know they've been running Linux the last 2 years or whatever they've been running. There's a lot of those kinds of people out there. They just don't care as long as it works, right?
Well, the major thing I'm finding is, especially with my users at the museum here, is they went along with my Linux propensity, but they keep coming back to me saying it's too difficult. We don't understand, and it's like, well, I don't understand why you click on a button that says menu to find that difficult. But I find what they're finding difficult is the fact that I ask them to put a username and password in there. And they don't want that for a desktop.
Well, even Richard Stallman didn't want that back in the day. He kicked off a whole thing of people sharing a password because they didn't want to have to type in a username and password on their shared computing devices.
Launch codes in one of the Titan missile sites were all 00000.
Well, it kept people out, right?
I was at an event once, and I was wearing a hoodie like this, but it was black and it had a giant Ubuntu logo on. And as I was walking along outside, this guy who was having a cigarette walked up to me and he said, well, actually shouted at me from the other side of the road. He went, "Oi, Ubuntu boy," at me. Me?
Let me guess, he used Arch.
Well, actually, he used Ubuntu, and he said, and he pointed. There's a like a big arena that they were having a big trade show. It was the ski and snow show or something, and he pointed. He said, "We use that in there." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He said, "All the video displays, all the projectors, all the music, it's all synchronized. It's all running on those Ubuntu things." I was like, "Oh, that's great!" Just like random stranger walking up to me in the street telling me that he uses Ubuntu, and he doesn't want to. Like, at no point is he going to be a member of any club or community, and I think that's a thing we need to be able to take a step back and say, look, there are some people who want to get involved, like us. There are people who want to see the nuts and bolts and fix bugs and report bugs and translate stuff, and then there are users who just want to get on with their life.
I think we also have to recognize
that
Go ahead, Big
most Linuxes are in sort of bubbles and their own bubble of sorts.
Yeah.
And they think that everything that is Linux revolves around just like they think. That is the same bubble. And if someone else that is using a different...
and we lost his audio there.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, he went into robot mode there for a second.
Yeah.
I sometimes think, like, what would we do if suddenly, for some bizarre reason, there was a catastrophe and everyone just saw the light? It wouldn't be a catastrophe. It would be some, magical event that happened and everyone saw the light and they all went out and got USB keys and installed Linux, right? They all had Windows on their laptops and, whatever the problems are, forget about all of those wireless and printers and all of that kind of stuff. Forget about those. They went out and installed it and they were successful. How would we cope with like an extra 10, 20, 100 million people running Linux? Like,
well,
your YouTube channel might become a lot more popular.
Well, there would be serious growing pains for that reason, because how many of these people know anything about the free software movement, the open source software movement? Like, they're going to expect proprietary software like Microsoft Office, the Adobe Creative Suite, to be on Linux, and it's not going to be there. So,
and you'll soon attract the viruses and the criminals even faster.
Right. I mean, exactly.
Bitcoin miners and stuff.
Well, we're already
not to mention
getting that.
tech support for installing printers using cups. Oh Lord, that's a pain.
Why doesn't my Canon work? Why doesn't this printer that doesn't have Linux drivers? Why doesn't that? I mean, it would just be a nightmare if everybody tried to run it, because there are some machines that are just not going to work. Right? There's some hardware out there that's just not going to work.
To be fair, my mother-in-law pinged me the other day and said one of her friends has just bought a printer. Could I help? And this woman has a Mac. She's got a MacBook Air or something laptop, and they can't get the printer working on the Mac. And so, I had a little chuckle inside, because I know full well that if I plug that printer into my laptop, it'll just find it and I'll be able to print stuff on Linux. But there's no way I can tell this 90-year-old woman, throw away your Mac. You should use Linux.
And the thing with
because Apple's the one that came up with cups to begin with.
Right. Well, she's got precious few years left on the planet. Do I really want to stress her out?
And one thing struck me the other day is like these Mac fanboys, especially, that try to troll me on my channel. Like, I get people that defend Windows, but they don't do it as with so much vigor and gusto as the Mac fanboys, because they had to buy really expensive hardware, right, to run Mac. So they feel like they really have to defend their operating system, and it's like
it's console war fanboys.
Right.
So the level of cost of hardware equates to their angst and bitterness towards anyone.
And I get that, just human nature. If I spend a whole lot of money on something, it better work. Even if it doesn't work, I'm going to pretend like it's working, because I'm not going to buy something else. I just spent a whole bunch of money on this, MacBook Pro that cost me $7,000 or whatever that high-end one costs now. So anyway.
Well, isn't that couldn't you apply that to Linux users and time? Why do you think people brag about I run Arch, by the way, because they spent so much time making it work, and they justify it that this was worth it, and they say, "Look at my fancy desktop," and it's
time does equal money. Yeah.
3 days that it took to.
I don't do that.
The reason why I push Fedora so much is because I want to have something that is RPM. When I first started using Fedora, it's like all this stuff was great for going to Ubuntu and having a Debian package and stuff like that. There's no RPM package. Now I'm finding that a lot of the stuff has an RPM as well as Debian, and I love it.
But you're right. You can equate time with money. Not so much with Arch. You don't spend that much time really setting up an Arch install. Gentoo is a little more time consuming, but something like Linux.
An awful lot more.
Linux from scratch. I see a lot of people go through the Linux from scratch tutorial. Go spend a couple of weeks getting Linux from scratch up on a machine, and then they try to live in it, which is something you can't do. But they spent so much time to build Linux from scratch. Now they want to make it work. They want to install a package manager, and it never works out. But they feel like they invested so much time.
I did it a while ago, and it took me 4 attempts to do it. I think maybe I mentioned this, but 4 blooming attempts. It's all down to Caddy, Git. But I did it 4 times. Nearly committed suicide at one point. And it lasted, eventually when I got it working, it lasted on my computer system 30 minutes, and then that was off. I had enough of it.
You have to undertake that as an educational experience.
I planted the flag, said I've been here, done it. Right, now I can leave.
That's kind of how I took distro hopping. I tried to learn something every time I changed a distro, but eventually you reach a plateau that's suitable to your personal situation, and you just go with something.
Yeah, of course.
And distro hopping is interesting because, you've got that one thing on your machine that just doesn't work in that distro you're on, so I'm going to hop to something else. And this new distro fixes that problem, but now you have 2 other problems you didn't have before. And now, where are you hopping to? You hop to somewhere else, and you're always going to have some issues. You just have to... I guess we settle as Linux users sometimes. You just have to settle on something and find them, right? And I say that, and I probably hop more than anybody.
I've installed, normally I just do a plain Arch install, but as I mentioned, I wanted to try and steer away from systemd, so I installed the Artix Arch install. And, it took a while to get my head around, because obviously a lot of the commands that I've been used to don't work. And obviously the last one that I've managed to get working was the printer, funny enough. So I've got everything working now. So it's been on my system now for, 4 weeks? And I don't, unless something goes dramatically wrong, I don't intend to move from it at all.
What's the rationale for, I understand the history of systemd at Upstart and initd and all that. What's the, in 2018, the tweet-sized why I don't like systemd? I just don't understand it.
Stop jobs.
I haven't understand that either.
I hate stop jobs.
A lot of people...
But that's an easy fix. You just edit, making it CPIO, and I'd shut down to the hook.
I can answer Alan because I like systemd, but a lot of people do message me that they say systemd has become bloated. It's more than a knit system, and it's not, it's the Unix philosophy. Do one thing well, and systemd has kind of evolved into more than just,
everything but the kitchen sink.
Right.
Okay. But I mean, I know there are people out there who love it and people out there who hate it. I don't care. Because it's under the hood stuff that I don't get. It's like UDEV and my DNS resolver. Unless it's doing something wrong, I don't care.
That's the conclusion I came to as well. I was choosing between a distro that had systemd and choosing between one that didn't, and I realized all the stuff that at least I understand about the init system was basically it was theoretical, and I also believe some of the developers' attitudes weren't that great. But that was all under the hood, so I just went with the System D distro, and it's worked out perfectly fine.
I like it.
I used to go to great pains to just use ALSA, but you know, I eventually Pulse Audio's fine.
Oh, those were troubling times when we Pulse Audio in the desktop.
Indeed, they were.
But now, like, I can have a Skype call open or a Hangout, plus be playing a video and have a Steam game open all at the same time. Like, I know, why would you do that? But you can do that, and it just works. Like,
and it's funny that Andy brought up Pulse Audio when we were talking about System D. Lennart Pottering, of course, created both of them. So the same developer behind both projects. Caused a lot of controversy, both of them. So
yeah, but I think Pulse is great now, and I think the problem is I just don't care enough about System D. I don't, you know, the fact is we worked on Upstart, and you know there was this big rivalry between Upstart and System D, and it wasn't really, but I don't know. I find it difficult getting annoyed with System D, but there's nothing System D's ever done to hurt me that I know.
Well, as I say, I didn't get really totally annoyed with it. I just wanted to try a non-System D system and see how different it was.
Right.
It's not really any different, you know, on the face value of it. I thought at the beginning things were opening and shutting a little quicker. Now that I've been in it a while, I'm just wondering, is that just a thing that I was thinking, because I can't really compare the two side by side. So
it's just a perception, isn't it?
It could be, yeah, it could be. So but I'm actually, it's working for me at the minute. And as I said, unless something goes catastrophic, I'm going to stay with it because I'm actually enjoying the system. And I've gone away from the distro hopping days of yore, and I've just got so fed up with, you know, I got so fed up going from one to the other. And this is why, you know, when I have a system like Arch, I try and stick with it. And it's usually Arch, XFCE, and that's it. I ignore everything else. So, yeah.
I like System D because it's consistent. You can work with a lot of different types of services using the same syntax.
Yeah.
So once you learn that, then it makes life a lot easier.
Huh. No. Right, I need to drop off. Thanks, everyone. It's been a lovely chat. Have a good rest of
Thank
Sunday.
you, Alan.
Thanks, Alan.
Appreciated your input.
Yeah,
Good day, Popey.
Good information there.
I'm looking at a title here. It's called 12 Malicious Python Libraries Found and Removed from PyPy. Bitminers, Bitcoiners.
Oh, yeah.
It's like AUR and Node.js and Snaps.
You're seeing that. You're seeing that more with these community repos, things like the AUR, and you know, you're going to see it with PPAs, Gentoo overlays.
Yeah.
You're going to see more of these people trying to slide their crypto miners into these packages. So,
are these crypto miners basically just criminals, or are they just greedy people?
They're just greedy people. They're actually not breaking the law in any way. Well, I guess in some jurisdictions, maybe, depending on what they're doing. But a lot of these people actually they'll include the code and they'll license it. You know, like they'll put an appropriate license on it. So they're not really, It's like that that guy that put the Snap, the crypto miner and the Snap in Ubuntu, in the Ubuntu Software Center. He didn't do anything illegal. He took a free program that was licensed under the MIT license, and you can do this. You can take, because it's such a permissive license, you can take his app, rename it, put a proprietary license on it, add that crypto miner to it. Nothing illegal, nothing wrong. He really didn't break any rules.
That's a fraud.
Yeah,
there's something wrong with it. It's stealing my resources.
As far as I know, that's fraud.
It's cheaper than buying a rack of graphics cards.
Yeah, it's not fraud if the license lets you do it. So some of these licenses, like
it's fraud if you don't tell the user you're doing it.
Yeah.
Well, there is that. Yeah.
Something additional, it's a fraud. Especially if it technically must hurt user, and here it does because it hurts the system performance. So
yeah, the problem is that what is hurting the user. I mean, it's using some of your CPU, but it's not really damaging the system. So
affecting him negatively. Let's use a correct law speak.
But not only that, it pushed up the price of bloody graphics cards. I mean, it was ridiculous.
It still is.
Yeah.
The prices of NVIDIA cards is still ridiculous right now. So.
Yeah.
That's the effect of being NVIDIA and not of mining.
Yeah.
Right now.
Hey guys.
Hey Ben.
Hey.
Hey Ben.
How are you guys?
Ben, what distro are you running this week?
Nothing.
Nothing. He's being
You're
a good
on
boy
Windows.
today.
Wow.
He's waiting for a very nice gift.
Basically, I'm gonna sound like an idiot right now, but I am so upset with Linux that I can't muster myself to install one right now. That's literally how frustrated I am.
I have a fix for that.
What?
Don't use LFS.
No, don't do that to me. Don't do that to me.
I mean, I could install even Ubuntu or Debian right now, and I would be pissed off.
Yeah.
That's literally how much of a break I'm taking right now. I can't even install something easy and be happy. That's literally how much of a break I'm taking. I don't care how long it takes. I am taking a break until I can muster to even do that.
So are you going to go back to Hackintosh?
Not even that. Nope. I'm cutting myself off from every OS, even Mac, to just calm myself down. I'm literally cutting off myself from having any OS fun just to recuperate, basically.
So, Windows it is.
Yep. Nada else. Basically.
Welcome back.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Basically, I'm just...
For now.
Myself.
Yes.
Big Pot said, welcome back. Welcome back. Huh?
Yeah, that was funny. Yeah, so right now the only Linuxy Hackintosh kind of thing is live streams. That's it.
Ben, you do realize you're on a big rubber band and you'll come bouncing back at some point?
Yeah, I know I'm on a big rubber band, but it's flat right now. Yeah, it's a flat rubber band that doesn't bounce right now.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Because right now I can't even make a Linux USB without getting frustrated, or a Mac OS USB without pissing my pants.
And next Sunday, by next Sunday, Ben will be back. We'll see Gentoo compiling on one of his laptops. And,
I wouldn't even, Derek, I wouldn't even count on that being the case. I mean, sure you could say that, but I wouldn't even count on that happening, probably. But we'll see.
What bothers you so much?
I mean, just literally making a USB, putting it in, installing it, and then an update breaking or even the installer breaking or the USB not booting is enough to tick me off. Just one thing in a Linux or a Mac OS or a Hackintosh USB breaking is enough to set me off right now. That's literally how burned out I've got. Just it doing one thing wrong at all is enough to make me go nuts.
Yeah.
And
do you own
Don't
weapons?
use LFS.
Do you own any guns?
No.
Okay.
Oh.
Well,
good.
Glad to hear that.
Yeah. I mean, I do own a custom-built lightsaber, though, but I am literally so...
I thought all lightsabers were custom-built.
Well, they are, but these are pre-made bought ones.
I'm pretty sure you have to build your own as a Jedi.
Yes, you do, but look, I'm literally so close. Yeah, if I install Linux right now,
Derek.
if I install Linux right now and it breaks at all, I'm literally so close to walking over to the other side of the room, turning on my lightsabers, all of them, and just smacking the laptop with them until they break.
Ben, we've had this discussion before. You want Linux that doesn't break. One word, Debian. Repeat after me, Debian. Go Debian. Just Debian stable.
Free. You want the drivers in there.
Right.
Yeah, Ben can handle that.
If he doesn't have the non-free drivers, he might freak out. So
you just add one repo.
Yeah, add a Ubuntu would be more than plenty for me.
Right.
RPM Fusion, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
Get off the
even
rolling
want
release.
Yeah, I'm not going rolling release. I mean, I would rather have Ubuntu or Debian. I'm just telling you. That's probably where I'm going at this point. Not Gentoo, not Arch. No.
Hey,
I'm
and
not
when you,
going Arch. There's a guy in the chat.
and I already know.
Fedora is very stable these days.
Well, he only mentioned.
I mean, yeah, I know Fedora is stable, but you couldn't even put me through the installer to get me to use it.
Ben, here's the thing.
Here's how against it. Yeah.
Yeah, Ben, install Debian Stable, but I know you. When you install Debian Stable, the first thing you're going to try is, well, I'm going to add this SID repo, or, don't do any of that. Just install Debian 9. And once it's set up, walk away. Just step away from the machine. Don't start hacking on it. Don't
do anything.
Yeah, don't tinker. Yeah, just
use it. Yeah.
Right, use it.
Exactly.
All right.
Question: What's wrong with just limiting your distro hopping to VirtualBox? That's what I do.
You couldn't put me in front of a VirtualBox and pay me to use it. I would get so bored that I would just close it down and delete the VM.
Well, it doesn't. By VirtualBox, I mean any virtualization.
Yeah. You couldn't put me in front of QEMU, VMware, VirtualBox, nothing. It wouldn't faze me. Like, I would lose focus on it even during the installation. That's how bad it would be.
Why is that?
I've tried VMware, VirtualBox, everything, and Steve's right. I have to mess with everything just to get myself happy. Like, if it's not Arch, Gentoo, or LFS, I'd be bored within 5 minutes. Literally.
How about Commodore 64?
Nope. That would even bore me.
I'm going to create a fork called Apathy.
I don't know what that even is.
Hey, Ben, it just hit me. Haiku. Go ahead and put Haiku on that laptop. Yeah, that's something completely. It's not a Linux operating system. It's based on BOS, but it might work on your laptop, and it's something for you to tinker with. I mean, it's kind of a.
I don't like the sound of that. I'd rather run
FreeBSD.
No.
Temple OS.
I don't even know what that is.
Disregard Temple.
Yeah, no. I would rather sit here for hours compiling GNOME on Gentoo than do that.
Yeah. And in the chat, Father Sayer, he mentions the reason VirtualBox is no fun is because there's no risk of borking your system. If you mess up something in VirtualBox, you really didn't mess anything up.
Yeah,
I can
that's
see that.
how boring it is.
I don't want that to mess.
If you use Linux to get thrills, then you're going to have problems.
Exactly.
Yeah. You'll
Eric,
be back, man.
I've got a question for you about Arch and Python. You mentioned that when they installed Python 3.7, it broke everything.
Yeah.
How did they get around it? How did they fix it?
One thing you might want to do is your Python apps, especially if you installed them from the AUR, reinstall them. So it'll fix most of them. Some of them it may not fix. It depends if that app was even packaged to work with that version of Python. So don't be surprised if some just can't be fixed. Like you install them, you run, you have all these errors about missing modules and libraries.
That's going to happen again next year. Python gets updated about once a year. So
this is what we deal with on a rolling release. Unfortunately, I mean, you're going to have things like this that crop up from time to time. So.
Thank you.
But a lot of them will be fixed if you just reinstall.
If you waited 2 weeks,
if you wait, they will be fixed.
Yeah, you wait long enough, they'll.
Well,
but again,
I think 2 or 3 days. The Arch lot are pretty quick at fixing stuff.
Thank you.
There was a problem with the Qt stuff. There was a problem with a lot of the there was breakage. I think it was last week or the week before with a lot of Qt apps, and I started fiddling about and looking at it. I thought, no, so VLC wouldn't launch, and obviously a few other Qt apps because there was a upgrade problem, So I waited, what was it, 2-3 days, and it all came. There was an upgrade to the Qt framework within Arch, and then it all sorted itself out.
No.
When you update Arch, is there a way to say, I don't want to update anything that's been done in the last, say, 5 days?
You can select
older stuff.
You can select what you don't want upgraded. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, okay, package by package, but are there dates on them so you can,
No,
like,
there's
stay
just-
5
there's
days
just-
behind?
No, there's just indexes.
No.
Too much work.
It's a little work, but how often are you trying to hold packages back? I mean, it doesn't happen that often where there's a package.
You can downgrade a package if you want to.
Yeah.
You know, if it's not working properly, you could downgrade. As long as it's nothing major, you could downgrade it. There is a downgrade function within Arch. You can downgrade it. If that helps.
It's still a lot of work for Andy. I think he's still
Oh,
looking.
okay.
It's like
I'm
really
no sorry.
like downgrading packages. What?
Oh, I've heard of that, but you know, come on.
All right,
Right.
okay.
That's why I'm Fedora.
Right.
I'm
Well,
amazed how many incremental upgrades there are to the kernel in Fedora.
Fedora has a
Since
lot
I've
of updates. Yeah.
I've been running it for 2 weeks, and it changed. I think I've had like 7 or 8, you know, kernel updates. I don't know if they're full ones or whether they're just doing little pieces.
Probably
That's-
security updates. You know. Some,
Yeah,
you know,
little,
just minor
little pieces, but not a single one has borked my system. I mean, it just keeps working.
Well, have you rebooted since you've put those updates in there?
Oh, I reboot after whenever a kernel gets updated, I reboot to see if it works.
Just say, because just because it updated the kernel doesn't mean it's loaded that version.
No. I reboot again. It works fine. It's a little boring, but like I say, you get the latest, pretty much the latest software, and decent stability works for me.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's one thing.
I guess I was disappointed. I couldn't find Rofi anywhere, but then Derek, you mentioned United RPMs.
Yeah.
And so I added those, and I found Rofi, and I use that for finding applications sometimes. And there was a nice little script out there that you could use it to find files instead of Catfish or something. And I modified it so you type in the name of the file, it finds it, you hit enter, and it opens up Ranger in the directory that's holding the file, and you can do what you want with it. It's really fast.
Yeah, I added 2 repos. I added RPM Fusion, of course. That's the main non-free repo everybody adds.
Right.
And then I added that United RPM repo because it had a lot of the Jack audio utilities, things like Cadence and Claudia and that stuff was in that repo, so I added that repo. And those are the only 2 non-free repos I've added, but I found pretty much everything I needed just adding those 2 repos. So
I had to add a little repo, personal repo by someone holds to get the Papyrus icons, but then I found the elementary icon set was available in one of the regular thing and switched to those, and I like them. They're nice.
Andy, I was just wondering why you don't, your little Rofi script, you said that you're launching Ranger when you find a file. Why don't you just launch the application instead of Ranger XDG open? And that way it'll open right up.
No, the original script did that, but I didn't use it to find applications as much as I've got another instance of Rofi for doing that, but I was just trying to find configuration files for something in etc.
Oh, okay.
You know,
Yeah.
and I could type the name of that, find it, and it opens up Ranger, and then I can edit it with Vim or Genie, depending on my mood.
No.
Okay.
It was an easy mod.
Yeah, I was just wondering why you were going that route.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wonder if you could have it to launch in Ranger, but in the preview mode where you're seeing, you know, the text, you know, catted out in Ranger, you know, how you can get the little
if
preview.
you open in the directory and it's on the file, then you might have to move down to the file, but it's got I've got that preview feature going, and you can see what it looks like. Or you hit F3 in Ranger, and it works just like Midnight Commander. It brings up sort of a cat thing to show the file. You can go back and forth without opening an editor.
Yeah.
You just want to view the config file. Ranger's really very nice.
It is.
I've only really started using it, and yeah, I'm liking it. It's good.
But now I have to try VI files or whatever because
VIFM. I'm gonna make a video about it sometime this week because I've really
what I use.
I've been blown away by it. Just using it for a couple of days here.
I looked at it some time ago and for some reason didn't care for it, but I may not have been as Vim efficient back then as I am now. Not that I'm that efficient in Vim. I still use the J&K. The problem is, you know, being bilingual, using GUI stuff like Octave, you know, and the built-in editor there, and Vim, I can't tell you the number of times, say, I've opened Mousepad, and there's a row of J's on the first line suddenly because I'm trying to scroll down using Vim keys. That's a little embarrassing, but, you know, other than that, it's okay.
I even still have that problem sometimes in Vim itself. Like I'm in insert mode, and I forget to go back to normal mode, and I'm trying to navigate with J and K, and I just inserted a whole bunch of J and Ks, you know, in the line.
Oh, done that too. Yeah.
Right. So, because I have the arrow keys disabled in my Vim config normally to prevent me from ever touching the arrow keys. So
that's pretty hardcore.
Yeah, it is. But you know what? It solves that problem pretty quickly. When you start hitting those keys, nothing happens. Oh, quit using those keys.
Well, talk about proprietary stuff. I've been trying to find someone who had a EDT or an Eve editor that I could port over from DEC, from VMS over to Linux, and no one seems to have anything or an EDT like type of thing. And it's just I've gotten so used to using the EDT keypad, you know, like the PF10 to open a line and stuff like that. It's all muscle memory. And but it's been so long that I've probably lost that muscle memory.
Yeah, I wonder.
Well, it's hard. I've been using Control-C and Control-V for cut and paste since, I don't know, mid-90s or something. You know, when I first got a Windows, decent Windows installation at work. And
yeah, but how hard is that?
Stop doing that.
Yeah, especially once you're like in the bash shell or you're in something like Vim and, you know, Control-C, Control-V no longer work. Like you're doing something in bash and you want to paste something. What is it? It's either the middle mouse wheel or it's shift insert, depending on whether you want to do it with the mouse or the keyboard.
And they don't always work the same either.
It depends sometimes on the terminal emulator, sometimes on the different shells that you're, not all of us are running bash, obviously. But anyway, guys, we do need to wrap this up because I've got to head to work. So we're coming up on 2 hours here. So let's get a last word from everybody. Big Pod, give us a last word, sir.
Thank you for having us, and check out my channel during the course of this day. I will put out another video about Architect Installer.
I will definitely check it out. Yeah, and I just want to say that was very touching when you told Ben, "Welcome back to Windows." So that was that was great.
I got moved.
Choked up, huh? All right, Christopher, you got a last word for us? The first Christopher. We've had a couple of them.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's always nice having these chats on a nice Saturday.
And it's Sunday here, but okay.
Sunday afternoon, right?
Right.
Days that are hard to understand.
No, I understand. Yeah, they all kind of blur together at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Remember to like the video. Yeah. I don't think I have anything else to say. Always nice having these.
All right. Thanks, Christopher. Silent Robot, you got a last word, sir.
Thanks as always for having us on. It's always a pleasure to join these.
Yeah.
Great conversation, great community.
Yeah. Thanks for hanging out with us. Andy, last word, sir.
Oh, yeah. Also, thanks, Derek, for holding this. I enjoyed the discussion today.
Yep. Yeah, and we'll do it again, of course, next Sunday. I need to check on a time. I don't know if it'll be morning or evening, but we'll definitely do one next Sunday. Chris, last word, sir.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having it. Always enjoy jumping in on this conversations, and sit there. I'll bring a ugly sweater next time or something. I don't know.
Yeah, but, you know what? Everybody should wear blue hoodies next week in honor of Alan.
For Alan, in honor of Alan. But and Alan really knocked us out of the park with the with that stuff today.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting.
But the I don't have a whole lot to say right now, other than everybody stay safe, stay warm, and hope to see you next week if our times match up.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Chris. Folkred, you got a last word.
Oh, thanks as always, Derek, for holding these. I think this is a great thing, and thanks everybody.
Yeah,
it's been fun.
Yeah, this will be the best part of my entire day for sure, because it's all going to be downhill from here once I go to work. So these are fun.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, that tells you how boring my Sundays are. Murray, you got a last word, sir.
Thanks again, Derek. What can I say? Life is just one big merry-go-round.
Yeah.
I've got going to be converting my Debian 9 stable to Antergos, and I think I'll be protected because I can take snapshots. So next 3 months, I'm going to see if I can convert everything over, and it looks pretty good.
Yeah, so, moving from Debian stable to Antergos, what could go wrong? So.
Wow.
Back up your data.
Back up.
I'll take a snapshot right before the update, and if I need to, I can roll it back.
Yeah.
That's don't trust. That's what the fair would be.
Yeah. Don't trust the snapshots though. Do have an external backup somewhere.
Yeah.
All right, Garth, you got a last word, sir.
Oh, just great being here, chatting to everyone. Yeah, I just love this Sunday chat thing. So yeah, happy Christmas to everyone. Yeah. Great to be here. Brilliant.
And we'll try to do this again next Sunday. Get one more in before Christmas.
Before the big day.
It's crazy how fast Christmas got here this year. I mean, 9 days away. So. And of course,
the same speed every year.
Yeah. Doesn't seem like it.
No. And let me get my last word. I'm going to do my last word here. This show is made possible by Ansem, Carlos, Chris, David, Leo, Rob, Tony. Those guys, they're awesome. They're the reason we do these shows. Also brought to you by all those fine ladies and gentlemen. See all those names on the screen. They support this channel. If you guys want to support the channel, you find me at DistroTube over on Patreon. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye.
I don't know what, man.